Hello, I'm Rebecca Flaherty, and today we're continuing our beginner series and making this cute gingerbread pattern here. If you're a regular here, feel free to use the timestamps to skip straight to the beginning of the tutorial, but if you're new here, then welcome to the Pattern Maker's Toolkit. You can get the free stamp brush motifs to make this pattern over in the Pattern Maker's Toolkit on my website. They're all free, and we're going to be using a canvas from my Etsy store to make patterns in Procreate using the diamond method. It's super easy, super fun. It's going to speed up your workflow because sketching out and finalising the layout of the pattern first before you draw any motifs means that when you do come to illustrate motifs, you're only drawing the exact ones you need and you can draw them to fit their exact spot in the pattern. Traditionally, we tend to work the other way around when we design patterns, where we draw a bunch of motifs first and then we try and piece them together like a jigsaw puzzle. But the problem with working that way in Procreate is that every time you rotate or scale motifs, the image quality deteriorates a little bit. So by doing it this way, you keep your image quality perfect, you get to preserve all the layers so you can go back and make edits to the colour, and you get a motif that is custom drawn to fit that exact spot in the pattern. It's also an especially good way to make patterns if you want to sell or license them, because you can export all these layers to something like Affinity Photo or Photoshop and be able to hand over a fully editable layered pattern to your buyer. That is the workflow I use for the patterns I make for commercial use, and that's why I love using the diamond method for making patterns in Procreate, and why I first created these canvases for myself to speed up the design process with all the layers set up, including the seamless texture overlays on top. So let's get started and I'll explain everything else as we go along. So I'm going to go back out into the gallery screen, and if you're bringing in a PSD file into Photoshop, you always want to start in a gallery screen, either in a stack or in the main gallery screen like this, and import it via that option there. If you try and drag and drop a PSD file into Procreate, it's going to flatten all the layers. So I'm going to bring in the brightly painted canvas because that's the same one we've been using for all of the other patterns in this collection. And as you'll see here, it's got some overlay textures on it and some background textures. So the overlay textures have got like some nice painty kind of colours in them, painty textures. And then the background texture has this nice like brush strokes pattern in it. So we'll start off by setting the background colour that we're going to use for this pattern, and I'm going to use a pink colour for this one. So we'll use this pink here, and I might make it a little bit lighter again actually, and I'll add this one to the palette so you can use it too. So if I just hide these textures, grab this colour, and I'll add it to the palette so you can use that one too. Turn those back on again. And the stamp brushes we're going to use for this one is the Gingerbread, so I'll just go down and find those, grab the first one there, and we're going to start working in our layers folder, in the sketch folder, and on the draw here first layer. So I'm going to stamp this one onto there, and the size for this is 30%. If you want to use the same brush size as I am, then I'm going to add another layer and stamp the next gingerbread person in there, and add another layer and add the other one there. So we've got one of each of those, and we're going to spread these around the canvas. So I'm going to use my transform tool. I'm going to turn snapping and magnetics off, and we'll put this one up at the top there. Then this one we can move over there. And then I'm going to duplicate these and add some more around the canvas. We'll need to put these around the outside to see how these fit, and then we'll need to adjust them. So I'm going to merge all of these down onto one layer and merge them down with the sketch diamond. Then I can duplicate this layer, tap transform, turn snapping and magnetics on, and we're going to snap this over to this corner here, looking out for those orange lines intersecting there. Then we duplicate this again and snap it up into that corner, and then repeat that in these corners as well. As well as looking out for those orange lines, with the Pattern Maker canvas we have these nice lines on there that will all line up nicely to show that you've got it snapped into the right place. So then those top 4 layers, we can merge those together, and I'm going to invert the colours on those. So now we can see what's overlapping and what we need to kind of move around. So I'm going to use the select tool and just start with this one. I'm going to draw around it. It's okay to have bits of the diamond in there like that. So we'll just move that one up there a bit more, and then we can move this one up a bit. And then we'll see how that's looking, because obviously we've moved this one over a bit. So let's delete the green one, and then we'll try spreading this around the canvas again. Snapping the magnetics back on this time. Pinch those top 4 together, invert the colours, and then we can have another little jiggle around with positioning on these. And then hopefully that will be it now. So let's delete this green one, and then hopefully one last time duplicate these around the edges of the canvas. That looks okay. Don't think anything's overlapping there. Invert the colours, and then I'm just going to add some flowers to the gaps in here. So I'll go up the top, grab my flower brush, and then we can again just duplicate that around to make sure that none of the flowers are clashing with each other. Invert that, delete the top one, and then we just need to put the faces in on these. So I'll add a layer above the pinkish layer, and with my face brush, and turn snapping and magnetics off so you can like adjust these and the angle of them, and then we can duplicate that and drag it over to all of the other little gingerbread people. There we go, that's our sketch all worked out, and now in the next step we're ready to start illustrating. So all of our illustration is going to be done in the pattern folder. So we'll start in this layer here. I'm going to use this brown colour to do the outline of the gingerbread people to start off with. So I'll just trace around these. And the nice thing about drawing these individually rather than just using the stamp brushes is you get the nice textured line, but also you get the variations in pattern, and each one will look slightly different and slightly unique. Then we're going to tap on this layer and make it a reference layer. Then we're going to add a layer underneath it, and using any of these gingerbread colours, we're going to tap and fill that. And what that's done, it's used this layer on top as a reference layer to fill what's underneath. So that way we get to keep the line work and the colour underneath separate, so we can easily change the colour, but we get to make use of the line work to do the quick fill underneath. So I'm going to reduce the opacity on this while we're working, just so I can see the face underneath. Hopefully I'll remember to turn it back up again later. The next thing we need to do is the outlines for the flowers. So I'm going to use a dark colour to draw the middle like this, and I'm going to tap and hold to get that nice perfect circle for the middle, and then on a layer below I'm going to use a lighter colour to do the petals like this. Just make sure I have all of those shapes closed there. Then we need to go and turn off this reference layer. Then we can go back to this layer and fill in those, and then on this one we can do that, and I'm going to go and do that for all of these flowers on this layer, and I'm going to do each one a different colour. And as I was colouring all those in, I was wondering, is this going to look better if I make them white? So I'm just going to try filling that now. And I think I prefer those white. If you want to leave them that colour, you can leave them that colour, or you could choose to have them white. I think I'm going to keep mine white. So the next thing we need to do is draw our faces on the gingerbread men. So we'll add a layer above, grab our brown, and with the tracing crayon we're just going to draw around these, tap and hold to get those perfect circles. And then we can hold again to get a nice curve on the mouth and hold to get that straight line. So I'm going to go around and draw all those and then fill them with colour drop. I'm going to bring the sketch folder on top here and change the blend mode on this purple layer to linear burn so we can see where the white dots go now. So back on our pattern layer, I'm going to add another layer above, and I'm going to use this white and my mini dot brush to draw the little sparkles in the eyes. Then we can also use this white layer to add some dots for the icing on there. So I'm just going to use a slightly bigger brush to do like 3 dots down the middle of all of these. If you wanted to add like extra details, like cuffs for clothes and stuff, you could put that on this layer as well. Then I'm going to add a layer, and last of all is just to do the cheeks, the pink colour. So make the brush a bit smaller again. Just give them some cute little pink cheeks. There we go, that is all of our illustrating done, and before I go any further I'm going to turn up the opacity on this one so I don't forget. There we go. So that's all of our illustrating done, and the next step is to build out the pattern tile. So I'm going to turn off the pattern marker on this layer, and you can either duplicate and flatten your pattern group, or you can hide everything except your pattern group. Swipe down with 3 fingers, tap copy all, come up to the top here and swipe down with 3 fingers again and tap paste. Then we can hide the layers and turn the background colour back on again, and the textures and the overlay textures. Then on this pasted in layer here, we're going to draw a mark going off the edges of the opposite corners, duplicate this layer, and then we're going to drag this down into each of the corners with snapping and magnetics on, the same way as we did when we were working in our sketch layer. And here it is really important that you have it snapping properly into the corners, because this will be our final pattern tile. And then you can pinch the top 4 together, erase those marks in the middle, and then on the one underneath just erase those off the corners as well. Then we can pinch those together, and then that is our finished pattern tile, which we would export as a PNG or a JPEG. I'm going to show you now how to test the pattern repeat to make sure there's no errors in it. So we're going to swipe down with 3 fingers and copy all, come up to the top here and tap paste, and then drag this and snap it to the middle of the canvas. You'll have orange lines there, and that will say 1800 pixels there. Then underneath, add a layer and fill it with black or any dark colour. And then if there's any gaps around the edges of the pattern, those will show through. So we're going to duplicate this one, snap it into that corner there, just zoom in and then pan up and down this edge where those two meet, and make sure that there's no gap and that your motifs line up properly there. If they're okay, you can pinch those together, then duplicate and drag those two down to the middle, and then you pan along this line here and make sure that there's no gap there and that those line up as well. And then when that's done, you can pinch those together, and that is our pattern in repeat. I really hope you've enjoyed watching this tutorial, and if you have a go at making this pattern and share it on Cara, then don't forget to tag me at Rebecca Flaherty so I can see it. You can find the pattern maker canvas, this one is from the Boho Bright set, over in my Etsy store, and the stamp brushes and palette are free over in the Pattern Makers Toolkit on my website. The Pattern Makers Toolkit is kind of like a Patreon group, except it's free. You get access to all the resources in the Pattern Makers Toolkit on my website, including those I make for my Skillshare classes, early access to some of my YouTube tutorials and drawing prompts, discounts in my Etsy store, and one new freebie exclusively via email every month. And I only send out one email per month, I promise. If you want to see more pattern tutorials like this every week, then don't forget to subscribe here on YouTube. Have fun, stay creative, and I will see you next time.